On my 32nd birthday, my husband set a small velvet box beside my coffee mug and said, almost casually, "Open it before it gets cold." It was an ordinary Tuesday morning. The radiator clicked in the kitchen. There was butter softening on the counter. I had not even finished tying my hair back. Inside the box were 2 silver keys on a plain ring. I looked at them, then at him. "What are these?" He smiled in that easy way people do when they think they've done something thoughtful. "Keys to your new place." I thought I had misheard him. "My new place." "A studio," he said. "For you. Somewhere quiet. You're always saying you need room to paint." My name is Elena Mercer. I was 32 then, and I had been married for 6 years to Daniel Mercer, who liked giving gifts that arrived wrapped in his own explanation. I turned the keys over in my hand. They were cool and heavier than I expected. "You bought me a studio?" "Downtown," he said. 11th floor. Good light. "I figured you could make it yours." There was toast in the pan. Coffee in the air. His phone lit up once beside his plate, then went dark again. "Can we go together?" I asked. He shook his head and reached for his jacket. "I can't today. I've got back-to-back meetings. But you should go. See it before anyone else. Start imagining things." Then he kissed my forehead and left. I stayed at the table after the door closed. The apartment was quiet in that weekday way, with traffic far below and one cabinet still hanging open. I held the keys and tried to feel grateful. I did feel something. It just was not gratitude. Not fully. By early afternoon, I drove into downtown Pittsburgh with the address he had texted me after breakfast. The building was old in a beautiful, expensive way. Stone trim, brass around the front doors, a lobby with marble that had lost some of its shine but not its dignity. It smelled faintly of lemon polish and dust. I took the elevator to the 11th floor and found Unit 11B. The key worked on the first try. Inside, the place was empty. There were tall windows, worn oak floors, and pale walls with faint square marks where frames had once hung. Dust sat along the baseboards. One corner of the living room was brighter than the rest, where the afternoon sun came in at an angle. It was lovely in a bare and silent way. Not staged, not prepared, not even swept properly. I stood still for a minute, listening. Nothing. Just the low hum of the building and a distant siren somewhere below. I set my bag down and opened a few windows. The air that came in was cool and carried city sounds with it. I found paper towels in my car, went back down for a bottle of cleaner from a corner shop, and started wiping the sills and counters. It gave my hands something to do. About an hour later, someone knocked. Not loudly, just 2 small taps. I opened the door and found an older woman standing there in a beige coat that had seen many winters. She was slender and pale, with careful posture and a canvas handbag hanging from one wrist. "Can I help you?" I asked. She looked past me into the apartment, then back at me. "I used to live here." Her voice was soft. Not fragile exactly, just tired. I stepped back a little. "Oh, I'm sorry. My husband bought this place recently." "I know," she said. I sold it to him. There was something in the way she said it that made me stop talking. She glanced over my shoulder toward the windows. "May I come in for a moment?" "I won't stay long." I should probably have said no. Instead, I moved aside. She walked slowly across the room and stopped near the largest window. For a few seconds, she only looked out, one hand resting lightly on the sill. The late light touched one side of her face. "I lived here for 38 years, she said. "Long enough to know what this room looks like in every season." "It's beautiful," I said. "It was many things." Then she turned toward me. Her expression was strange, not because it was dramatic, but because it wasn't. She looked like someone deciding whether to tell the truth one last time. Then she said, very quietly, "Do not turn on the lights tonight." I thought I had heard her wrong. "I'm sorry." "The lights," she said. "Don't turn them on after dark." A small chill moved through me. "I don't understand." She took one step closer. "When it gets dark, stand here by the window and look at the building across the street. 4th floor. Corner unit." I felt my fingers tighten around the spray bottle I was still holding. Why would I do that? She held my gaze for a moment, and when she answered, her voice did not rise at all. Because what you see there will explain why your husband bought this apartment. Neither of us spoke after that. Then I heard the elevator doors open down the hall. I waited until the hallway went quiet again before I asked her anything. Why would you say that to me? She looked toward the door, then back at the window. Because I should have said it sooner to someone else, years ago, and I didn't. That was not an answer, not really. But it was enough to keep me from dismissing her. She adjusted the strap of her bag. Her hands were steady. I'm not asking you to believe me right now. I'm asking you to do one simple thing. Leave the lights off. Stand here after sunset. Look across. At the fourth-floor corner unit? She nodded once. I studied her face, hoping to find something clear there. Confusion, bitterness, mischief, anything I could name. What I found instead was restraint. The kind that usually comes after a person has already lived with something too long. My husband told me this was for me, I said. I know what he told you. There was a softness in the way she said it that unsettled me more than anger would have. I set the cleaner down on the floor. What exactly are you saying? She let out a slow breath. I'm saying a gift can still be a message. And sometimes the message is not meant to be kind. The room felt cooler then. Outside, the light had started to thin into early evening, that flat silver gray that comes before the city turns reflective. Did he say something to you? I asked. When he bought it? She hesitated. That pause mattered. He asked careful questions, she said. About sightlines. About which rooms could be seen from here. About whether the curtains in the opposite building usually stayed open. I stared at her. The traffic below made a faint wash of sound under everything. A horn. The rumble of a bus. Somewhere in the hall, a door closed. He asked that. Yes. I felt heat rise into my face, then leave just as quickly. Maybe he was just curious. Maybe, she said. But the word landed flat between us. She moved toward the door, slowly, as though she had already said more than she intended to. At the threshold, she stopped and looked back at me. Whatever you do, she said, don't let him know you know it tonight. I did not answer right away. Then I asked, what's your name? Marjorie Bell. I nodded. I'm Elena. I know, she said, and then seemed to regret that she had said it. She opened the door. Stand in the dark. Watch. Then decide what kind of woman you want to be after that. And then she left. I locked the door behind her and stayed where I was, one hand still resting on the knob. The apartment had changed. Not physically. It was still bare. Still elegant in an old city way. But now it held an instruction. A purpose I had not brought with me. I walked back to the window. The building across the street sat close enough that I could see details I had not noticed before. Pale brick. Black trim around the windows. A narrow fire escape cutting down one side. The corner unit on the fourth floor had long curtains drawn halfway across, not fully shut, just enough to suggest privacy without creating it. I checked my phone. 4:42 p.m. sunset was a little after 6. I could have left. That would have been the clean, sensible choice. Go home. Ask Daniel direct questions. Watch how he answered. Tell myself an older stranger had planted something ugly in my mind and that I had been foolish enough to let it settle there. Instead, I sat on the floor beside the window. The wood was cold through my skirt. Dust clung faintly to the hem. I placed my bag beside me and set my phone face down. Then I waited. The room dimmed in stages. First, the corners softened. Then the walls lost their warmth. Then the windows became mirrors until the city lights below rose enough to separate the glass from my own reflection. I did not turn on a lamp. I did not move much. Once, I stood to stretch my legs and walked the length of the room, then came back to the same place. At 6:11, the fourth-floor corner unit across the street lit up. Just one lamp at first. A warm amber glow. I leaned forward a little. From where I sat, I could see only part of the living room. A couch. The edge of a bookcase. The outline of framed pictures on the wall. Then a figure crossed in front of the light. A woman. Young. Slim. Moving comfortably, like someone who knew where everything belonged. She disappeared briefly and came back carrying a wine glass. She wore a loose cream-colored top and had her hair clipped up. She set the glass down, adjusted the curtains without closing them, and looked toward the door. I told myself it could still be nothing. A tenant. A friend. Someone entirely unrelated to me. At 6:18, another figure entered the room. He bent to kiss her before he had even fully stepped inside. I did not gasp. I did not make a sound. I only watched. The man turned slightly toward the lamp, and I saw the line of his shoulders first, then his hand, then the profile I knew better than any other. Daniel. Same coat, same way of loosening his tie with one hand, same watch I had given him on our 5th anniversary, the one with the dark blue face and the scratch near the clasp. He smiled at her. She laughed and touched his chest as if this had happened so many times that neither of them had to think about it anymore. I stayed very still. He kissed her again, slower this time, and she took his hand and led him farther into the room. The light shifted as they moved. Then they were gone from view. I sat in the dark with my back straight and my hands folded once, tightly, in my lap. My heart was beating hard, but the rest of me had gone strangely calm. Not peaceful, just precise. After a moment, my phone lit up on the floorboards. Daniel calling. I looked at the screen until it stopped. A few seconds later, a text arrived. "How's the studio?" I read it once. Then I turned the phone over again and waited. I did not answer him right away. I let the phone sit there on the floor while the light from the other building stayed warm and steady across the glass. Somewhere below, a truck backed into an alley with that slow mechanical beeping. In the apartment around me, there was only dust, dim blue evening light, and the quiet shape of a room I now understood had never been meant for me. After a minute, I picked up the phone and typed back. "It's beautiful. You chose well." 3 dots appeared almost at once. "I knew you'd love the view. I'll be late tonight. Dinner with a client." I read that twice. Then I set the phone face down again. The 4th-floor apartment across the street stayed lit for nearly 2 hours. I did not see much after that first moment. Once, the woman crossed the room alone carrying another glass. Later, Daniel appeared near the window in shirt sleeves, speaking into his phone, then smiling at something she said behind him. That was enough. More than enough. At 8:07, the lamp clicked off. At 8:26, my phone vibrated again. Heading home now. Long evening. That was the first moment I felt something close to anger, but even then it came cold, not hot. Not a burst. More like a door closing and locking into place. I stood, brushed dust from the back of my skirt, and took 3 photographs through the glass, the building exterior, the corner windows, and the street number above the entrance below. Then I left. Outside, the night air was cooler than I expected. The sidewalks still held some warmth from the day, but the wind between the buildings had a sharpness to it. I crossed the street slowly, not hiding, not hurrying. The building opposite was narrower and newer than mine, with a polished lobby and dark, tinted glass at the entrance. A digital directory stood just inside the first set of doors. I could not reach it without a resident code, but the reflection in the glass was clear enough if I stood at the right angle. 4th floor. Unit 4C. D. Mercer. I took a photo, then another, closer one, to make sure the letters were readable. I went home after that. By the time I got there, the house was still dark. I put the kettle on, changed into soft clothes, and sat at the kitchen table with a mug of tea I did not really want. The dishwasher hummed. The under-cabinet light cast a low amber strip across the counter. I had always liked our kitchen at night. It was the most honest room in the house. Nothing decorative, just practical things where they belonged. Daniel came in at 9:03. He loosened his scarf as he walked in and gave me the same small smile he always gave when he found me awake later than expected. "You're up." I couldn't sleep. He leaned down and kissed the top of my head. His coat smelled faintly of cologne and city air. "How was your day?" "Productive," I said. "How was dinner?" He took a glass from the cabinet. "Long. A little dull." "With who?" He opened the refrigerator, still facing away from me. "A client from the logistics account." I watched his shoulders while he poured water. "Which restaurant?" There was the briefest pause. "The Luno. On Grant." I looked at my tea. The Luno had closed in January. We had tried to book an anniversary dinner there and found a paper notice taped inside the front window. I remembered because Daniel had said maybe it was for the best. He never liked the place as much as I did. "That sounds nice," I said. He turned then, took a drink of water, and nodded as if the conversation had passed cleanly. I did not ask anything else. That night, he showered, checked 2 emails in bed, and fell asleep on his side within 15 minutes. I lay awake beside him, looking at the dark line of the ceiling fan and listening to him breathe. My mind was not racing. That surprised me. It was arranging. By morning, I had rules. Not revenge. Not a confrontation. Just rules. Step 1, confirm everything. Step 2, make copies of what could disappear. Step 3, speak only when speaking would change something. I got up before him, took my coffee into the study, and opened our household accounts. Daniel had always handled most of the investment details because he liked numbers and because, over the years, I had let convenience turn into trust. Our checking accounts were joint. 1 credit card was shared. The rest were his, but statements still passed through our tax folder and household email archive often enough that I knew where to look. I started with the easy things: mortgage, utilities, insurance, normal, then a monthly payment I did not recognize. Harbor Point Residential LLC, $2,400. Auto pay. 8 months running. I wrote it down. Then a parking charge downtown on Sundays when he had supposedly been catching up at the office. A florist charge in a neighborhood he never visited with me. 2 hotel deposits marked as conference lodging during weekends when he had told me he was with senior partners out of town. I did not react to any single line. I just kept going. At 8:14, Daniel came into the study doorway adjusting his cufflinks. "You're working early." "Just organizing receipts," I said. He smiled. "You always do that when you're stressed." That might have hurt on another day. That morning it only told me he still believed he understood me. After he left, I called the one person I knew who would not waste my time with sympathy: Gavin Reese. He had been a friend of my older brother's years earlier, the kind of man who noticed exits, timestamps, and license plates without seeming to. He was a licensed investigator now. I had not spoken to him in a long time. He answered on the 3rd ring. "Elena." "Yes." A pause. Then his voice changed, not softer, just more attentive. "What happened?" I looked down at the page in front of me. Street address. Unit number. Payment amount. Dates. "My husband has another apartment," I said. "And I need to know everything connected to it." Gavin did not interrupt. "I need photographs," I said. "Names. Property records. Any overlap with company expenses. I need a timeline that holds up." He was quiet for 1 beat. Then he said, "Send me the address. And from this point on, assume he knows less than you do." I wrote that down too. Then I waited. I sent Gavin everything within 10 minutes. The street address, the unit number, the photo of the building directory, the payment name from our account, a list of dates that already looked wrong. When I was done, I closed the laptop, washed my coffee cup, and stood at the sink for a moment with my hands resting on the counter. The kitchen window faced the side yard. Bare branches moved a little in the wind. A delivery truck stopped 2 houses down. It was an ordinary morning. That helped. By noon, Gavin had already sent back the first piece. Unit 4C is owned by a holding company tied to Daniel through a registered agent. Occupied consistently for at least 6 months. More coming. I read the message once and put the phone down. Then I made a second list. Step 1, secure financial records. Step 2, document patterns, not excuses. Step 3, speak to an attorney before he has time to rearrange anything. That afternoon, I went back to the apartment Daniel had given me. I brought a notebook, a charger, a bottle of water, and a small lamp from home, though I left it unplugged in my bag. The hallway still smelled faintly of old paint and radiator heat. Inside, the room was exactly as I had left it. Bare floors, high windows, quiet. I sat near the glass before sunset and waited again. This time I was not hoping to be wrong. At 6:07, the lamp came on across the street. At 6:16, Daniel arrived. He did not look rushed. That detail stayed with me. He moved like a man entering a place where nothing was uncertain. The woman opened the door before he knocked. She was wearing a dark sweater this time, her hair loose over one shoulder. He kissed her lightly and handed her a paper shopping bag. She looked inside and smiled. I wrote down the time. 6:16 p.m. arrival. Brought bag. At 6:41, they sat down to eat. At 7:08, they moved out of frame. At 8:02, he reappeared in the window, holding a phone to his ear. My own phone buzzed a second later. Running late. Don't wait up. I took a screenshot, then another of the time. There was no rush inside me anymore. The facts were beginning to align in straight lines, and straight lines are calming. Painful, but calming. At 8:24, he left. I stayed where I was for 5 more minutes, then crossed the street and walked once around the block. On the back side of the building, there were reserved parking spaces under a steel awning. One of them held Daniel's car. I photographed the plate, the space number, the building marker beside it. When I got home, he was not back yet. I went into the study and opened the filing cabinet where we kept tax returns, insurance documents, and mortgage folders. Daniel had never bothered to organize them beyond broad categories, which made it easier for me. In the property folder, I found no mention of the second apartment. In the tax drafts, though, there was a reference to depreciation schedules for a rental holding. Not our home. Not anything we had discussed. I made copies. Then I scanned them to a cloud folder under a name no one would notice. At 9:11, Daniel walked in smiling, carrying a bottle of wine. For us, he said. I looked at the label. It was one I liked. That almost made me laugh, not because it was funny, but because it was so ordinary. Betrayal has a way of arriving beside grocery store gestures and familiar shoes. That's nice, I said. He set it on the counter. I thought we could have a quiet night tomorrow. Just us. I nodded. That sounds good. He came closer then, searching my face for something. I let him find calm. The next morning, Gavin called instead of texting. I have enough to tell you the shape of it, he said. I closed the study door before answering. Tell me. The occupant is Lena Cross, 27. She works in operations at Daniel's firm. The utility bills for 4C are in her name, but the lease chain traces back to the holding company connected to him. I wrote while he spoke. How long? Apartment secured 8 months ago. She's been staying there regularly for at least 6. Your husband's car is there 3 to 4 nights a week. 3 to 4 nights. I thanked him and let him continue. There's more, he said. Charges on his company card. Restaurants, hotel bookings, furniture delivery, a car service account tied to her pickup location. Sloppy, honestly. That word mattered too. Sloppy. Not tragic. Not mysterious. Just careless because he had felt safe. Can you put it in a clean timeline? I asked. Yes. Include source documents. Of course. When the call ended, I sat still for a moment. Then I called a divorce attorney whose name I knew from a local women's business board. Claire Donnelly. Practical reputation. Quiet style. Hard to rattle. Her assistant offered me an appointment for the following Tuesday. I need Friday, I said. There was a pause, papers moving. She has a cancellation at 11:30. I'll take it. After that, I did 3 things. I transferred half the balance of our shared checking into an individual account I opened years earlier and had never used. I changed the passwords on my personal email, cloud storage, and phone backup. Then I printed every statement Gavin had flagged and placed them in a plain folder with no label. When Daniel came home that evening, he kissed my cheek and asked what I had done all day. Paperwork, I said. He laughed a little. You and your paperwork. Yes, I said. Me and my paperwork. Later, after he went upstairs, my phone lit up with a new message from Gavin. Timeline complete. Also found something else. Call me when you're alone. I looked at the screen for a long moment. Then I waited. I did not call Gavin until the next morning. Daniel had left early, saying he had a breakfast meeting across town. I waited until his car was gone, locked the front door, and sat at the kitchen table with my notebook open before I called back. What did you find? I asked. Gavin did not circle the point. Your husband used company funds for more than dinners and hotels, he said. There are recurring charges tied to the apartment setup. Furniture, artwork, appliances, and a vehicle lease tied to Lena Cross. The payments overlap with his corporate expense submissions. I wrote it down carefully. Can it be proven cleanly? Yes, he said. I pulled the reimbursement records. He coded several of the charges as client development and executive housing support. They won't hold up under review. I looked toward the sink, where a dish towel was still hanging straight from the handle. Everything in the room was tidy. Familiar. It helped me keep my voice even. Send me the supporting records with the timeline. You'll have them in 10 minutes. When the call ended, I sat there for another moment, then opened the email as soon as it came in. The file was organized exactly the way I needed it. Property records, payment history, parking logs, photos, expense reports, dates beside dates beside dates. There is a strange comfort in clear evidence. It does not remove the injury. It just takes the confusion out of it. At 11:30, I walked into Claire Donnelly's office carrying a plain gray folder. Her office was on the 12th floor of an old building downtown, not far from the courthouse. The receptionist spoke softly. The waiting room smelled faintly of coffee and printer toner. On one wall there were framed degrees, and on another, abstract paintings in muted colors that looked expensive without trying to. Claire met me herself. She was in her early 50s, maybe, with a navy suit, silver earrings, and the kind of expression that suggested she did not waste motion. She shook my hand once and led me into her office. Tell me what's happening, she said. I placed the folder on her desk and opened it. My husband bought an apartment across from another apartment he's been using with an employee, I said. He gave the first apartment to me as a birthday gift. Claire's face did not change much, but her eyes sharpened. For me to use as a studio, I added. The previous owner warned me to stand at the window after dark. That got the smallest pause. I did, I said. And I saw him there. She looked down at the first photographs, then the property records, then the expense statements. She turned pages without comment for nearly 3 full minutes. I let the silence stay in the room. It was useful. Finally, she looked up. How long have you known? Less than a week. And you gathered all of this in less than a week? I confirmed what I could. Then I documented the rest. She nodded once, not approving exactly, but recognizing. This is strong, she said. Very strong. I felt my shoulders settle a little. Enough to file? Yes, she said. There's adultery, concealment of assets, misuse of marital funds, and likely corporate fraud issues that may become relevant whether we raise them or not. The apartment given to you does not erase the one across the street. If he acquired either during the marriage, they become part of the picture. I asked the practical questions first. What can he move? Cash, quickly. Records, if he panics. Narrative, immediately. What should I do today? She folded her hands once on the desk. Step 1, no confrontation until filing is ready. I nodded. Step 2, preserve originals and backup copies somewhere he cannot reach. I have digital copies already. Good. Step 3, act normal. Normal enough that he keeps talking, spending, and leaving patterns. That last part mattered. I took out my notebook. Claire noticed and, for the first time, gave a very slight smile. You like systems, she said. I like clarity. That will help you. We spent the next 40 minutes going through our marriage timeline, property holdings, retirement accounts, shared savings, and household routines. I gave her everything plainly. The house, 2 cars, joint checking, his retirement account, my small investment account, the unexplained monthly payment, the separate apartment across from the one he gifted me, the employee, the company expenses. Then I told her one more thing. The former owner of the gift apartment says he asked specific questions about the sight line to the opposite unit before buying it. Claire set her pen down. Will she say that in writing? I don't know yet. She may not need to if the pattern speaks for itself, Claire said, but if she will, that matters. It was deliberate, I said. Yes, Claire replied, calm as ever. That is what it sounds like. When I left her office, I had a checklist, a temporary strategy, and the steadying feeling that I was no longer standing alone inside something shapeless. There was a process now, a structure. Monday for drafting, Tuesday for filing if nothing moved first. I went straight from her office to the apartment Daniel had given me. I sat in the dark again that evening, but this time I was not there to discover anything. I was there to record a routine. At 6:12, Lena turned on the lamp. At 6:19, Daniel arrived with flowers. At 7:03, my phone buzzed. Client dinner. Don't wait for me. I took a screenshot and wrote the time beside it. At 8:31, he left. At 8:42, a second text came. On my way home now. Sorry, long week. I stayed seated for a full minute after reading it, looking across at the window he had assumed I would never truly understand. Then I crossed the street one more time. This time I did not stop at the front entrance. I walked to the side parking area and photographed his car in the same reserved space as before. Then I photographed the parking placard, the building number, and the time on my phone against the steering wheel through the driver's side glass. A security camera above the rear exit blinked red. Good, I thought. Let there be more records than he knows. Back home, I arrived 12 minutes before he did. I changed into a sweater, rinsed my face, and put water on to boil. When he came in, he looked tired in the practiced way people do when they want tiredness to answer for them. Still awake, he asked. I made tea, I said. Do you want some? That sounds good. He loosened his tie and sat down across from me at the kitchen table. For a few moments, we talked about nothing important. Weather, a neighbor's fence replacement, a package that had arrived for him and was sitting unopened by the stairs. Then he looked at me more carefully. You seem quiet, he said. I've had a lot on my mind. Anything I should know about? I poured hot water into his cup and watched the steam lift. Yes, I said. There is. He sat very still then. I set the kettle down between us and folded my hands once on the table. Then I began. I've spoken to an attorney, I said. Daniel did not move at first. He only looked at me across the steam rising between our cups. Then he gave a short breath that might have been meant as a laugh. An attorney for what? For the divorce. The kitchen stayed very quiet after that. The refrigerator motor hummed once and stopped. Somewhere upstairs, a floorboard settled. He leaned back slowly in his chair. Elena. I did not say anything. This is because I've been busy lately, he asked. Because I've been distracted? No, then what is this? I looked at him the way I had looked at spreadsheets all week. Line by line. No guessing. This is because you bought an apartment across from the one you gave me, I said. And you have been seeing Lena cross there for months. He went still in a different way then. Not confusion. Not outrage. Recognition. I watched it reach his face. He opened his mouth, closed it, then said, You don't understand what you think you saw. I understand enough. He stood up and took 2 steps toward the sink, then turned back. Who told you? The woman who sold you the apartment. His jaw tightened. Marjorie. Yes, that woman is unstable. She was precise. He stared at me. I let him. Then he changed tactics just slightly. His voice lowered. Softer. More careful. Elena, listen to me. This has not been what it looks like. I watched you enter the apartment 3 times. Color left his face little by little. I have photographs, I said. Property records. Payment histories. Parking logs. Expense reports. His eyes shifted then, not to me, but to the counter where his phone sat beside the unopened wine bottle from the night before. You went through my accounts? Our accounts, I said. And the records connected to them. That's an invasion. No, I said. It's documentation. He pulled a hand over his mouth, then paced once toward the back hallway and back again. What exactly do you think this is? I answered him plainly. I think you leased an apartment 8 months ago through a holding company linked to you. I think Lena has been living there regularly for at least 6 months. I think you used company funds to pay for furniture, dinners, hotel stays, travel, and part of her car lease. And I think you gave me the apartment across from hers because you wanted control over how I found out, or because humiliating me amused you, or because you believed I would never fully see it. I don't know which. I don't need to. He stared at me as if I had stepped out of a role he had written for me. That is insane. Is any part of it false? He did not answer. Instead, he sat down again and pressed both palms flat to the table. It got out of hand, he said after a moment. I said nothing. It was not supposed to become serious. I looked at him. That's what you're choosing? He blinked once. What? Seriousness, I said. That's the part you want to discuss. His shoulders dropped a little. I made mistakes. You made systems. That landed. He looked away first. After a while, he said, What does your attorney know? Enough. Have you filed? Yes. That was not fully true yet. The final papers would go in the next morning. But by then the structure was already built, and I had no interest in giving him time. He stood again. You can't do this in 1 week. You can't just decide. I didn't decide in 1 week, I said. You did. Repeatedly. Over months. I'm only responding in 1 week. He stopped talking. Then he tried one last shape of defense. Lena means nothing. I almost smiled at that, not because it was funny, but because it was so small. You furnished an apartment for nothing, I said. Leased a car for nothing. Charged weekends away to your company for nothing. Lied at this table for months for nothing. He said my name quietly then, as if gentleness might reopen a door. I did not let it. I'm not discussing the marriage tonight, I said. I'm discussing logistics. That shifted the room. He knew it. I knew it. The guest room is made up, I said. You can sleep there tonight or leave. Tomorrow, I'll be at Claire Donnelly's office at 9. You may have your counsel contact her. Do not remove records from this house. Do not touch the study files. Do not transfer funds. Do not contact me through anyone else when direct counsel begins. He looked at me for a long time. You've planned this. Yes. He gave a thin, tired exhale. And if I refuse? Then the process stays the same. That was the moment he understood there was nothing emotional to push against. No scene to redirect. No raised voice to answer with his own. Only structure. He took his phone from the counter and scrolled through it with unsteady fingers. I could almost see the order of operations forming in his mind. Lena. A lawyer. Maybe his office. Maybe the holding company. Maybe whoever managed the reimbursements. Too late. I need air, he said. That's fine. He grabbed his coat and left through the side door. I stayed where I was until I heard his car start. Then I stood, carried both untouched cups to the sink, and poured the tea out. After that, I locked the side door, went upstairs, and moved 3 folders from the study closet into the trunk of my car. Originals. Backups. Tax copies. At 8:14 the next morning, Claire called. We filed at opening, she said. Service is scheduled for this afternoon at his office. Good. There's something else. His firm has already received an anonymous internal complaint related to expense misuse. I assume that wasn't from you. It wasn't. Then someone else is protecting themselves. That did not surprise me. Systems wobble before they collapse. By 2:30, Daniel had been served. I know because he called 6 times in 15 minutes, then once from an unknown number, then sent a single text. Please tell me you didn't include the company records. I took a screenshot and forwarded it to Claire. At 4:20, she called back. His counsel reached out. They want to discuss settlement before full discovery. Why? Because their side now understands what discovery will find. That evening, another call came, this time from Daniel's number. I let it go to voicemail. His message was brief. Elena, please call me back. They suspended me today. I need to know how far you've taken this. I listened once, then deleted it. By Friday, the sequence had become public in all the places that mattered. His firm opened a formal review of his expense submissions. The holding company records were subpoenaed. The apartment across the street was frozen as a marital asset. The shared accounts were temporarily restrained from unusual movement. And Lena Cross, according to a note from Daniel's attorney, had retained separate counsel. Claire laid it out for me in her office with the same calm efficiency she had shown on the first day. The facts are doing the work, she said. That is what we want. I nodded. There may still be noise, she added. Denials. Reframing. Pressure to settle quickly and quietly. Don't respond to any of it directly. I won't. She slid a paper across her desk. It was a preliminary asset and conduct summary prepared for the court conference. Clear headings, dates, amounts, titles, nothing emotional, just sequence. I read it slowly. Gift apartment purchased on March 14th. Opposite unit acquisition chain traced to July. Recurring payments beginning August. Repeated corporate reimbursement overlap. False business travel entries. Documented visits. Text sent from opposite unit while claiming client dinners. A strange thing happened while I was reading. Not relief exactly. Something steadier than that. Completion. The truth no longer lived in my body alone. It lived in records now. In filings. In third-party review. In a timeline other people could verify without ever meeting me. That was enough. When the court conference came 2 weeks later, Daniel looked older. Not ruined. Not destroyed. Just exposed. His attorney spoke first. Claire answered with dates and exhibits. When Daniel tried to interrupt once, the judge stopped him without looking up. "Your counsel can speak for you," she said. And that was that. By the end of the hearing, the temporary orders remained in place, the apartment stayed under review, the financial restraints continued, and the company records were admitted as relevant to marital dissipation. Outside the courthouse, Daniel stepped toward me as though he wanted one private conversation to return us to something familiar. I stopped walking and faced him. "No," I said. He looked tired, embarrassed, and finally uncertain. "I never thought you would do this," he said quietly. "I know," I said. Then I got into my car and drove to the apartment with the tall windows and the clean view across the street. I let myself in, closed the door behind me, and stood in the quiet until the city sounds settled around me. The apartment still smelled faintly of dust and old wood, but less than before. Over the past few weeks, I had cleaned it room by room. I brought in a work table, 2 lamps, a rug in muted gray, and the tall metal shelf I used to keep brushes, sketch pads, and rolled canvases. I painted the walls a warmer white. I changed the locks. I kept the windows. That mattered to me. I did not want to erase the place completely. I wanted to reorder it. By the time the final settlement came through, the shape of everything was already clear. Daniel's firm terminated him after completing their review of the expense records. The apartment across the street was sold. The one he had given me remained mine under the settlement terms, along with a larger share of our liquid assets and the house proceeds once the property was listed and closed. It was not dramatic. No one clapped. No one delivered a speech. Numbers were entered. Titles were transferred. Orders were signed. That was enough. I moved out of the house on a quiet Saturday morning. No audience. No final conversation. I packed my clothes, books, kitchen tools, and the framed charcoal sketch my mother had given me years ago. A local moving crew carried the boxes out in steady trips while I wiped shelves and checked drawers. By noon, the rooms were almost empty. The house sounded different that way. Too much echo. Too much memory with nowhere to sit. Before I left, I walked through each room once. Not for sentiment, just for completion. Then I locked the front door, handed the spare key to my realtor, and drove downtown. My routine became simple after that. Coffee early. Work at the apartment table until noon. A walk if the weather allowed. Phone on silent when I needed it quiet. Tea in the evening. Sometimes music. Sometimes none. Peace is often plain when it first arrives. That does not make it small. A few months later, I heard from Marjorie Bell. Not through a surprise visit this time. Through a handwritten note slipped under my door by the concierge downstairs, addressed in careful blue ink. She wrote that she hoped I was well, that she had been thinking of me, that she was glad the apartment now belonged to someone who understood what a room could witness and still survive. I invited her for tea the next Sunday. She came at 3 in the afternoon wearing the same beige coat, though this time she carried a small bakery box tied with string. We sat by the window with our cups in hand and looked out at the city without speaking for a minute or two. "You changed it," she said. "Yes, it feels lighter." "I wanted it to." She nodded. After a while, she said, "You left faster than I did." I looked at my tea for a moment. "I had more examples than you did." Her mouth softened into something close to a smile. We spoke for nearly 2 hours. Not only about Daniel, not even mostly about him. She told me about the years before her marriage, about learning ballet as a girl, about taking night trains to visit her sister in Philadelphia, about how easy it is for people to confuse endurance with duty. I told her about painting again after a long break, about how strange it felt to make a home in a place that had first been given to me as an insult. Before she left, she stood by the window and looked across at the building opposite. The worst part, she said quietly, was believing I had to stay and keep looking. You don't, I said. No, she replied. And now neither do you. After she left, I washed the cups, folded the dish towel over the oven handle, and opened the windows for a little while to let the evening air move through. That night, I did not sit in the dark. I turned on the lamp beside my work table and finished a painting I had been avoiding for weeks. It was only a city window at dusk. Nothing symbolic. Just light on glass and the edge of a building in soft shadow. But when I stepped back from it, I realized it was the first thing I had made in a long time without trying to explain anything. That felt like recovery. There were smaller signs, too. I slept without listening for his car. I stopped checking my phone before breakfast. I no longer arranged my thoughts around someone else's lies. People sometimes imagine closure as a large moment. In my experience, it is usually domestic. It looks like labeled folders, clean counters, good sleep, a grocery list, a day that passes without interruption from the past. About 7 months after the settlement, a woman came into the gallery where I had started showing local artists work one weekend each month in a borrowed community space. She was maybe in her 40s, careful in her movements, and she stayed near the entrance for a long time before walking toward me. I almost didn't come in, she said. That's all right, I told her. She looked at one of the paintings on the wall, then back at me. Marjorie told me about you. I waited. She said, the woman continued, that if I was ready to make a plan, you might know where to start. There it was. Not a teaser. Not a grand pattern. Just the simple truth that these things are rarely as isolated as people think. I gave her the name of Claire Donnelly. Then I wrote down Gavin's number on the back of a gallery card. Start with records, I said. Then work in order. She folded the card carefully and put it in her purse as if it might break. After she left, I straightened a stack of brochures on the front table and watered the plant near the window. The room was quiet. Late sun lay across the floorboards in a long pale strip. Outside, someone was walking a dog past the storefront. Ordinary again. That is how most real endings feel. Not triumphant. Not loud. Just settled. And if you stayed with me through this one, I'm glad you were here. If this story gave you a little peace, or even just reminded you to trust what you quietly notice, please like the video and subscribe. And in the comments, tell me which city you're listening from and what time it is there right now. I always like seeing where everyone is checking in from. 2 popular stories will be waiting for you next.